going on, guys? Stefan, S&E's Garage. Today we're going to see if the gamble on our $1,000 Hyundai Elantra paid off. Alright guys, so like the title in the intro says, we're going to dig into this thing. We're going to check the car out from bumper to bumper. We're going to see exactly what this thing needs to be ready for its new owner. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to pop this hood. We're going to check it out under there, and like I said, we'll work our way back. So off camera, we went ahead and checked out the lights, brake lights, blinkers, headlights, high beams, low beams. You know, we went over the whole thing, fog lights. And we actually have 2 license plate bulbs out, so we are going to have to remember that we need to order some of them. But we're going to start, like I said, under the hood here. Now, as I mentioned in my previous video, this is a belt-driven engine, and I do not see a timing belt reminder sticker anywhere under here, which tells me this could very well be the original timing belt. So we're going to go ahead and pull the upper timing cover off and inspect that. They're super easy to do. That's the only reason I'm going to pull it. If it wasn't as easy, I'd probably just order one. But I want to get a look at this thing, see exactly what we're looking at here. We actually have an AC Delco belt here, so it is aftermarket. Original equipment is a Gates belt. It'll say Gates and Hyundai on it. But one thing I want you to see here is we have very small micro cracks starting to form in this belt. The tension seems okay, and like I said, here we have AC Delco TB284. So this is AC Delco's version of the timing belt for this vehicle. But with that being said, I am going to go ahead and replace this timing belt. That is going to be something we're going to do. Like I had shown you earlier, again, last video, we do have our original spark plug wires here, so we are going to be doing a full tune-up on this. But I do just want to take this chance here to inspect our valve cover gasket, especially now with the timing cover off. We can really get in here and kind of look to see if it's leaking, and it does not appear to be leaking. Our valve cover looks to be good. Our cam seal here appears to be good. We'll come back here on the back side of the valve cover. We're going to inspect that for leaks. Again, I don't see any. So top side here, everything looks pretty good. This battery looks to be newer. It's a Duralast, built like ass, Duralast. So let's go ahead. Let's pull this air filter real quick. See what we got going on in there. It is due for an oil change based on the sticker, but we're going to go ahead, pull the level and inspect. So let's really quickly here pull our air box off, take a look at this filter. And it's not terrible. I'm probably going to go ahead and order one and replace it, but it is not bad. So, let's go ahead and check the oil. Pull this dipstick here, wipe it off. Oil's actually really clean, and it is almost at the full mark, so it does not appear to be burning any measurable amounts of oil. Again, I'm not sure how long that oil change sticker was set for, but assuming it's 3,000 or 5,000 miles, it's right where they set it, so that's a good thing. Just let me get this timing cover back on, and then we'll keep checking. Now, some common issues that this vehicle has with the air conditioning system is going to be these AC lines here, basically going down to the compressor. Usually when they're leaking, you'll see them, the rubber specifically coated in oil. That's the air conditioning oil, the PAG oil that these things use to lubricate, and I don't see them wet, so they are going to be okay in my opinion. These belts do not look bad, but as part of the timing belt service, you replace the 2 accessory belts. So we're going to replace them with that timing belt. Another thing that you want to look at with these cars with the air conditioning system is this condenser back here. This one actually doesn't look original, because what happens with these original condensers is they rot and the fins literally fall out of them. So this appears to have been replaced at some point, which again is a good sign. It means they took good care of this car. Now, one thing I do want to do is pull this transmission dipstick. The engine's not warm, the transmission's not warm, so I'm not going to be able to check level. But I do want to check the condition of the trans fluid. I have checked the level before and it is good, but I kind of wanted you guys to take a look at this fluid with me. So you'll see this is supposed to be red, and you'll see it's not burnt. It doesn't smell burnt, but it could use a drain and fill, so we're probably going to do that. With these, you don't really have to stick to original equipment fluid. I've had good luck with Valvoline Max Life in these, so that is probably what we're going to use when we do decide to do that. So let's get this car up. Let's jack the front end up. Let's pull the wheels. Let's check our suspension, tie rods, sway bar end links. And let's get under it and check for leaks underneath, see what we got going on under there. Alright guys, so the next thing we're going to be looking at here is the struts. Here you'll see the dust boot is actually in really good shape. The spring does not appear to have any excessive rust. And it does not appear to be leaking. So these, at least this right front strut, should be fine. Now if we wanted to take it to the next step, we can try to get up in there and check the bump stop, but I don't want to damage that dust boot by doing that. But the top of the bump stop should be up there where the boot's connected to. So we're going to call this strut good. Let's come over to this side. We're going to do the same thing. We're looking for leaks. We're checking the dust boot, the spring. We're looking for any obvious damage, and we don't see any, so that's a good sign. You can see the strut towers up here. We can take a look here at our strut mounts by pulling these little plastic covers off. See if we have any rips or tears in those mounts. Again, I didn't really hear any noises or abnormal sounds, rattles from the front end. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that these are probably fine. But just for the sake of the video, you can go ahead, look in there. You're going to want to look in the center where the nut is. And I'm not really seeing anything alarming. Let me grab my flashlight real quick. And we will take a peek. And I don't see any rips in there, so I'm gonna call that good. So let's set you up on the tripod. We're gonna give the front wheels a little wiggle, check for play in the tie rod ends and ball joints. So what you're gonna want to do is grab your wheel side to side, give it a shimmy. This actually feels nice and tight. We're gonna grab top to bottom, give that a shimmy. Again, that feels nice and tight. So let's come over to this side. Over here, we're going to do the same exact thing, side to side. When you go side to side, you're checking your in and out or tie rods, making sure they're nice and tight. If you have any play in your wheel bearing, you'll feel it. But if it's a wheel bearing, you'll feel it side to side and up and down. That's kind of the way you're checking for that. Now we're going to go up and down as well, and again, it's nice and tight. So let's go ahead and pull these wheels off. It's 21 millimeter lug nuts. Zip them off real quick. Check the brakes. All right, guys, front wheels are off. This gives us complete access here to the front brakes. You'll see in here we have plenty of pad life, inboard and outboard. And while we're in here, we're just going to take a look at our axles here. You'll see here there's our inner boot on the passenger side. Here's the outer boot. I don't see any leaks. I don't see any grease being slung anywhere. That's a very good sign. Here we can check our lower control arm bushings. Some slight cracking on this one. You'll see it there. Completely normal, especially on a vehicle with 100 and you know, 74,000 miles on it. That is completely normal. We're going to do the same thing on this side. We're going to check the brakes. Again, plenty of meat. Plenty of meat. Checking our axles here. Inner and outer boots. No tears. No rips. We're looking at our tie rod ends. No rips or tears. Our steering rack. And again, our lower control arm bushings. Everything seems to be looking really good here. We are actually striking out. This is great. So let's get under the car. I'm going to go ahead, grab my creeper, bring you down there with me. We're going to check the front sway bar end links. We're going to get eyes on, you know, the bottom of the engine, the oil pan, the transmission. We're going to check for leaks, and we'll take it from there. All right, guys. So the easiest way for me to show you how to check these end links is to actually come under here and do it. So this is our sway bar here, and what you're going to want to do is you're basically going to grab the sway bar and kind of use your thumb on the control arm, and you're going to pull down here, and you shouldn't feel any movement. This should not be moving at all, and we are nice and tight here. We're going to go ahead over onto the passenger side, and we're going to check the same thing. Again, we should not have any movement, and we do not. So with that being said, let me pull you off the camera. Let me bring you down here and let me show you what we're looking at. Show you what kind of condition this thing's in. So here we are on the business end of our Elantra. Now, like I said, we do have a small exhaust leak, and this flex pipe is a little bit torn, but then we have this gasket that looks like it may be leaking as well, and these bolts don't look too great either. So we're going to start it up, figure out where our leak is coming from. If we can get away with just replacing that gasket, that's going to be the best bet, but getting that hardware off is going to be rather interesting. So we'll figure that one out in a second. Now, what I do want to show you is, like I said, this thing has 174,000 miles on it, and it is bone dry. There are no leaks under this car. You'll see here's our aluminum oil pan. You'll see it is nice and sealed. This is where our rear main seal would be. It is dry. And this is our transmission pan. It does have a little bit of surface rust on it. We'll probably scrape that, paint it, make it look good. But that seal is not leaking. And then up here we have our radiator, which the tanks are actually on the side of these radiators, and it is not leaking. So everything under here is in great shape. There are no leaks. The front suspension is nice and tight. We have no play on our ball joint or our tie rods. The brakes are good. And let's fire it up real quick. We're in the garage, so I don't want to run it for too long. I'll crack that garage door. Let's see if we can find our exhaust leak. This is our exhaust leak right here. Just like I suspected, it's this flex pipe. It's leaking right on the back. The easiest way to check for an exhaust leak is to put your hand around it and feel for the exhaust pulses. And that's where we feel it. So what we might actually do is cut this out and have a new one welded in. That way we're not messing with this, because this is not leaking. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So at least now we know where our leak is coming from. Alright guys, here we are on the back side of our Elantra. Now back here, like I said, we do have a little bit of a rattle noise that we're going to inspect. But before we do that, we're just going to come back here. We're going to look at our shock, which is nice and dry. It is not leaking, so that does not indicate to me that it is in need of replacement. And we're just going to come here, look at our brakes. You'll see there is plenty of meat on both the inboard and the outboard pads on this side. So the brakes on this side are good. The shock on that side is good. And the spring appears to be in very nice shape. So again, let's come over to this side. We're going to do the same inspection. We're going to look at our brakes. Plenty of meat on the outboard and the inboard. Our shock is nice and dry. Now here is our sway bar end link. Like I said, I'm suspecting one of these is bad. So it's going to connect here at this trailing arm, and then down there at the sway bar. Now it is worth mentioning that this is the last generation of the Elantra that has an independent rear suspension. And that goes back to me saying I think this is one of the best cars Hyundai built. Or it's one of the best Elantras Hyundai built, I should say. Because once they switched to the new body style in 2011, they went to a solid rear axle, and I think these cars ride better with the independent suspension. You have a sway bar and everything back there, and you don't feel every little bump. So with that being said, again, I'm going to set you up on the tripod to show you exactly how to check these rear sway bar end links. And like I said, I'm very, very suspecting that one of these is going to be bad. So let's get you set up. Alright guys, so here we are on the passenger side. We're going to check this rear sway bar end link. You're just going to grab the sway bar and kind of wiggle it, and you're going to listen and feel. And we definitely have play in this end link. Let me pull you off the tripod real quick. So here is our sway bar here. This is the sway bar. And here's the end link as it comes up, and I want you to listen. It's kind of hard to do with one hand, but there is definitely play in that end link. So really quick, just because I have to do one, I'm going to order two, but just because I'm curious, we're going to come over here, we're going to grab this one, and this one is tight. Now these end links are super easy to replace. You're going to see we have a bolt here and a bolt here, but what's nice about the Hyundai end links is that there are little flats here. There's going to be a flat on that side and a flat on that side that you can slip a wrench onto. And same thing with this guy. And you can either put an impact on it or just a socket with a ratchet, and it'll come right off. But otherwise, this thing is in excellent shape. I am very, very pleasantly surprised with what we found here. We'll see we have a little bit of corrosion here on the vent line and the filler neck. Not anything that's going to affect the longevity of it. You know, it's again 174,000 mile car. You're gonna have some rust, especially here in New Jersey. But with that being said, let's get this thing back down on the ground. Let's put the wheels back on it. We're gonna put the wheels on first, obviously, before we put it down on the ground. And then we're gonna get our X-Tool D8 out. We're just gonna scan it for codes, make sure that there's no pending codes, clear them all out, and we're going to get everything ordered. Like I said, we're going to do filters, we're going to do a full tune-up, spark plugs and wires, we're going to do timing belt and the accessory belts, we're going to do those rear end links, and I'm pleasantly surprised that we don't have to touch the tires or the brakes. That is a huge plus, especially when you're doing this to make money. I don't want to sound like a jerk, but the less that you have to replace, the better. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to not replace something that needs to be replaced. If the car needs it, it's going to get it. I want to sell a quality car to somebody, so we're not going to skimp. We're going to do this the right way. But I'm glad that it doesn't need that much. So like I said, let's get it back down on the ground. Let's scan it for codes, make sure we got nothing ominous hiding, and wrap it up. What we're doing here is auto-vinning the X-Tool D8 in order to connect it to our Hyundai. So we went ahead and selected USA because even though the car is made in Korea, it is in the US market. Now you're going to see here we have several codes in several different modules. You'll see that we have some codes in the ABS module, and we had some codes in the TPMS module. Now, the several codes that we see in the TPMS module were previously stored codes, so they are not current. We had some codes for some failed tire pressure sensors, TPMS sensors more or less, and then we had a code for an unmonitored tire. Now, what that means is there was a tire on the car that did not have a sensor in it, and that was probably from them getting a spare or a putting the spare on because of a flat or something of the sort. So the way that I chose to go in and diagnose to see if we had an actual issue here is to go into live data with the scanner, and I was looking at all 4 of my wheel speed sensors. So you'll see sensor 1, 2, 3, and 4, and then I was looking at vehicle speed. And when I took the car for a drive, you're going to notice that we had all 4 wheel speed sensors while I was driving straight. There were times where I was turning that the speed may be a little different, but when I was going straight, I was monitoring all 4 wheels to make sure that all 4 were spinning at the same speed. Because if you have a broken tone ring or a sensor that's on the way out, you'll see that the wheel with the issue will be spinning, or show that it's spinning at a different rate than the rest of them. So I'm just going to let this play for a minute. I'm going to let you guys check that out. But what I ended up deciding to do here is clear these codes, and we're going to put some miles on the car, and we're going to see what, if any, come back. Because what I think might have happened, and this is my theory, because we had that unmonitored tire codes in the TPMS module, your spare tire is not always going to be the exact same circumference as the rest of the tires on the car. So my theory is that the car was driven for a little while with that spare on it, and it set some codes because of that. So that's my theory, and we're going to test that theory by putting some miles on the car, and we're going to see if the codes come back. So that's where we're at. Alright guys, well that's going to do it for this video. Yeah, we found some issues with our Elantra, but they're all issues that are easily replaceable. And a lot of it is actually deferred maintenance. The timing belt, the spark plugs, the wires, that's all stuff that we're just going to get it caught up on maintenance. We're going to make a couple repairs, and we're going to have a super solid car. I am glad that we did pull those ABS codes out of it, because I was able to show you guys that you can diagnose issues like that without even breaking out a voltmeter. All you need is a decent scan tool, bidirectional, and you see we were able to diagnose to make sure all 4 of our wheel speed sensors were reading correctly, and they were. That's the kind of stuff that excites me. I like being able to go in there with the computer and see exactly what the car sees, and verify that, you know, everything's okay. So if this is the kind of thing that interests you guys, if you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing this. We are going to be hitting it hard this year for 2023. We're going to, you know, try to get as many cars in here as we can. Last year we did a lot of customer cars. This year I think I'm really going to focus on buying cars and basically doing whatever they need, so I don't have to get an approval from anybody. We're going to do what we need to do to make the car right, and get it going down the road. So like I said, like, share, and subscribe. There's going to be plenty more stuff like this coming down the pipeline, and we'll see you on the next one.